Hey, good day, folks. Welcome to another episode of Andrew's Life. I hope everybody's having a great day so far. Now, I'm fairly sure that many of you that watch this channel, or you're watching this video at least, you're aware of the Supreme Court decision that has been passed as of Friday, the 28th of June. The Supreme Court decision on the homelessness, or other words known as the decision on Grant Pass v. And in layman's terms, in a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court has determined that it is no longer unconstitutional for law enforcement to arrest and jail people for camping on public property, regardless of whether or rather not they are homeless, or as many people today would like to call it, houseless. Now, there were some of you that have put comments in the comment section of previous videos that I made discussing homelessness, that this decision was going to be passed or it has already been passed. And at first, I was going to do a video addressing that decision, but then when I did my research and I read the decision, I mean, to me, it didn't make any sense. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, there's got to be more than what they're saying here. There's got to be more to it. And there's been several news stories covering that decision. And again, I'm thinking, okay, this doesn't make no sense. There's got to be more to it. So I was hoping that as the days went by, there would be more information made available to the public about that decision, to where it would make a little bit more sense to why they would pass such a law. Unfortunately, it's today's Tuesday, so it's already been 5 days. No, it's been 4 days and nothing yet. And that's not to say that nothing else will come out further elaborating what that decision means and all that type of stuff. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give you my 2 cents about this decision. Now, as some people now, I don't know where to start. Now, with this decision, uh, depending on how you look at it, this decision could have some advantages and it could also have disadvantages. Now, I'm going to start with some of the advantages of this decision because I try to look at certain laws like this from two different angles. Now, me being a homeowner myself, and me being a homeowner myself and paying property taxes and all that type of good stuff, uh, would I want a bunch of people that are homeless or houseless or whatever you want to call those individuals? Would I want any of them out on the sidewalks or out on the streets in front of where I live, setting up tents and camping out and defecating all over the place? And for those who are homeless that might have habits of illegal substances, would I want them doing their thing and then putting all their needles and all their debris in the streets to where I could potentially step on needles or I could run over that stuff? Or would I want any of that in my neighborhood? No. And for most of you that own or even rent, I don't think many of you will want that in your neighborhood either. Especially if you're raising a family and you got children. You don't want that crap around your area. I mean, like if you're trying to go to your local downtown to go out to eat, you worked your ass off all week and now you're looking to treat yourself to a nice dinner with you or your significant other or your family or even by yourself. And so you go to a nice restaurant downtown. Now, would you want to go to your local downtown and have to walk by a bunch of tents, have to smell a bunch of urine, have to see a bunch of, have to see people possibly defecating, have to watch, have to, when you're walking, you gotta watch where you walk to make sure you don't step on nothing. And then again, if you got children with you, you know, you gotta worry about their safety as well. I mean, if you're trying to have a good time, you're trying to, you know, you know, you're trying to treat yourself to a nice dinner, let's say downtown. Nobody wants to deal with that type of stuff. And then when you look at it from a, I guess you can say, an entrepreneurial perspective for those who are entrepreneurs and own restaurants in your local city or what in your local city. I mean, just imagine working your butt off, saving a crap load of money, being on the hook for tens and thousands of dollars of loans because you chose to do what you're passionate. You chose to follow your passion. You know, maybe your passion is in cooking, so you chose to open up a restaurant somewhere, and the area that you chose to open up your restaurant, now you got a bunch of homeless people that are setting up tents. You know, they're defecating all over the place, making the area stink. You know, they might be, some of them might be doing illegal substances, and now they're walking around not in their right mind, and some of them pose a potential threat to society. So, as a result, you open up your restaurant, and now you're no longer making the money that you used to be making, that you could be making, because a lot of customers are now afraid to come into the neighborhood where your restaurant is located in because they fear for the safety of themselves and their family. Or just simply don't want to deal with that element of society. So you lose business as a result. So, with all that being said, I will say one benefit of this new piece, I mean, of this new law that the Supreme Court has passed is now if you got somebody in front of your yard or in front of your business that's that is not supposed to be there, that you did not invite onto your property, and now that you know, now you can pick up the phone and call your local law enforcement, and thanks to the Supreme Court they now have the power to come and effectively remove that individual from your property or from your business. And if they choose to put up a fight and not listen to law enforcement, they now could be arrested and thrown in jail. That all sounds great, especially if you're a home or business owner. So I would say that's one benefit of the new law. It kind of gives homeowners and business owners a little bit more power, so to speak, to have more control of who is around their place of business or place of residence. Now, for the other side of this law, you know, as much as some of us might see the benefits of the new law passed on Friday by the Supreme Court, now the other side is Okay, so you arrest all these people that are camping out in public places, and before I go on, let me break down what they mean by camping out. Now, when they say camping out, at first I was assuming, okay, uh, as long as you're not out here setting up tents, setting up sleeping quarters under park benches or under building or by buildings, you know, if you're just living out of your vehicle and you choose to park somewhere and you choose to get a good night rest for the night, and then the next morning you take off and you do what you do, whatever, it's all good. So if you're living in your vehicle, you have no issues, it's all good. And initially, that's what I was thinking. But before I decided to cut on this camera, I decided to take a second look at the law, just to make sure that just to make sure that my thoughts were correct. Now, unfortunately, I was not correct. I mean, what they define as what the Supreme Court defines as camping out is, it doesn't matter whether you have a tent. It doesn't matter whether you're just walking around with a little bag on your back with all your stuff in it, or you're living out of your car or van. If you're in any public place and either the property owner or local law enforcement, they ask you to leave, you choose not to leave. According to the Supreme Court new law, they now have the authority to arrest you and throw you in jail. So even if you're living out of your vehicle, you are still not immune from having to obey this new law. Now, with that being said, now for those of you that have been watching me for a while, you know that I do van dwell part time, and there's a lot of other people out here that van dwell and live out of their vehicles, and they do it full time. Now, my interpretation of the new Supreme Court law is, as long as you're for those, and this goes for those of you that are living out of your vehicles, whether it be full time or part time. If you go to a place that allows you to sleep overnight in your vehicle, if they don't raise any, if they don't have any crimes about you sleeping in your vehicle, then despite this new law, you should still be okay in those areas. Like, for an example, if you continue to go to your local truck stop, or you continue to go to certain rest areas throughout the United States and you decide to use those places to sleep overnight in your vehicle, as long as nobody says anything to you, you should be okay. I mean, you should be all right, I mean, if I were you, I would just simply carry on, do what you've been doing. Obviously, stay vigilant for your own safety. But other than that, when it comes to sleeping at truck stops, when it comes to sleeping at certain rest areas, I mean, for those of you that have been doing that, whether it be part time or full time, I would just continue to carry on and do what you've been doing. And don't worry about this new law. I mean, as long as no one says anything to you, you're good. And that's how I interpret this law to be. Now, I'm going to continue to van drill part time. I'm going to continue to sleep at truck stops whenever I travel around and do my driving tours. Or I go somewhere and I visit people. I'm going to continue to sleep at truck stops for the most part. I mean, like for me, truck stops is where I feel the safest at. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. Now, maybe every so often, I might treat myself to renting a campsite, but I can't do that regularly because that stuff gets rather expensive fast. Now, and secondly, speaking of this new law, now there's certain people that go to public places to sleep, and there's bad actors in the I'll just call it the van dwelling slash nomad community. There's unfortunately some bad actors in the community that might go into those places and they have a RV and they might do something stupid like empty out their gray and black tank on a parking lot, which obviously you're not supposed to do that. I mean, if you're driving around in an RV and your tanks are full, you're supposed to go. I mean, most truck stops anymore have a space to where if you're driving an RV, you can empty out your gray and black tanks. That or, you know, since you're spending all that money in gas driving around in your RV anyway, why not spend a little extra money and stay at a camp and stay at an RV park for the night? Therefore, you have access to filling up your water tank, and plus you have access to emptying out your gray and black tanks. So, with this new law, for those of you that have been out here being careless, being reckless, not giving a crap about how you present yourself, you go somewhere, you throw your rather than throwing your garbage in a garbage can, you just throw your garbage out the window, or you go somewhere and maybe you have a garbage bag full of trash that you've been collecting for the last several days or whatever. And again, rather than finding the closest trash can or dumpster to throw it in, you just take your trash and you throw it on the parking lot. You throw it on the yard, on the grass. And then you drive off like it's no big deal. Now, for those of you that are, for those of you that call yourselves boondocking, except you're leaving trails, you're being obvious, you're doing a whole bunch of extra, you're having no respect for the property owner, you're having no respect for fellow nomads and van dwellers. I mean, now that this new law has been passed, it's going to be that much easier for companies to decide to no longer allow anybody to sleep overnight on their property. And for those that think you're going to be slick and you're going to be sneaky, some of these places are going to hire security or they're going to have their employees kind of walk the lot every 20 minutes. And if you're there and you don't leave, they reserve the right to call local law enforcement. And then local law enforcement reserves the right to arrest you and throw you in jail. So this new law that has been passed by the Supreme Court should be a warning, and it should also be a encouragement for people to start being a little bit more respectful when you're out here camping and you're boondocking in parking lots, rather it be Walmart, rather it be a rest area, rather it be a truck stop, rather it be on the side of the road somewhere. And there's some of you that might live in RVs or you live in vans or you live in a car. And some of you might boondock in front of people's houses in residential areas. And I'm going to be honest. I mean, there were a couple of times that I did that myself. I mean, there were a couple of times that this was back in 2021. I took a trip to the Florida Keys, and I was in one of the Florida Keys, and it got dark outside, and most of the public places, most of the grocery store parking lots clearly stated no overnight parking allowed. So there were a couple of times that I parked my van on a residential street where people lived. And I try to be as inconspicuous as possible. So there were a couple of times I parked in residential areas myself. But I would encourage, for those of you that are living a van life or you're living an RV life, whether it be part time or full time, I do not encourage you guys to park in any residential areas at all. I mean, with this new law, now anyone who lives on that street, they can go ahead and call their local law enforcement and have you immediately removed. See, before some of you were doing a whole lot of extra talking about this is public property. I have the right to be here. There's nothing you can do about it. Y'all was getting loud and getting smart, just doing a whole bunch of extra. As for with this new law, you know, again, people now who live in these residential areas can call law enforcement and they can have you removed. And if you choose to be extra, then again, they can arrest you, throw you in jail. And most likely you'll have a nice hefty fine on your way out of jail. So just bear that in mind the next time you think about parking somewhere in a residential area. I mean, like that's why with me, if I'm not gonna pay to park at a campsite, I'm just going to just park at a truck stop. And sometimes you might run into a rest area on the freeway to where you can park your vehicle and be there overnight, and nobody's gonna bother you. And those are the areas that if you're gonna boondock and you're too cheap to pay to park somewhere, like at a RV park or at a campsite, those are places where I would suggest you park your vehicles to minimize getting that knock on the door by law enforcement telling you to either move or go to jail. Now, for all the individuals who are out here homeless and don't own a vehicle, I mean, my question in concerns to the new law that has been passed by the Supreme Court, my question is, where do all these people go? I mean, okay, you don't want them being downtown for reasons that I've explained earlier in the video. You want your downtown to be clean and presentable to people that are coming through as tourists or people that might want to move into your community and set up businesses and such. So you don't want your downtown littered with people that are living in tents or whatever. And many people who, as I said before, many people who are homeowners especially, they're not, we're not really trying to deal with that homeless stuff either. I mean, I'm me included. I'm gonna keep it real. So, for those who are homeless, where do they go? I mean, where are they gonna go? Now, some of you are probably thinking, okay, well, they can go to the local shelter. Okay, that sounds great. That sounds wonderful. And in a perfect logical society, that's where they ought to go. Here's a problem. I mean, for one, most of your shelters don't have enough space to accommodate every homeless person in their local community. Secondly, many of your shelters are not exactly set up for to accommodate a large amount of people. Now, and some of the information I'm getting ready to give you guys, I learned from doing my interviews out here in the streets when I interview homeless people. And some of this information I'm getting ready to give you are from people who used to be homeless, who I spoke to that didn't want to be on camera, but they used to be homeless But now, when it comes to the homeless shelters, there's several reasons why people who are homeless rather live out in the streets and sleep on the bridges as opposed to going to some type of a shelter. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, they don't want to have to obey any rules. They want to just be out here in these streets, riling out and going crazy. That's why they don't want to go in no shelter. And in some cases, that might be true. But I would say in many cases, the reason why many people who end up homeless don't want to go to a shelter is because, A, shelters, a lot of times, shelters don't have enough room to accommodate every homeless person in their local area. Let's start with that. Secondly, shelters are not always safe, especially for women. Because a lot of people, men, a lot of people, men included, have told me how they went to a shelter and they got attacked and beat up by other people who were homeless. They went to a shelter with all their stuff, with all their personal belongings that they own. And when they woke up the next morning, all their stuff was gone, even to include their wallet with all their identification, their Social Security cards, birth certificates, clothing, everything. Everything, all their worldly possessions were all in a bag. And when they woke up the next morning, someone then came through and stole all that stuff. So, some of the reasons why homeless people do not like being in a shelter is because A, safety reasons. B, they fear getting their stuff stolen, which oftentimes does happen. And another reason is many shelters are not as sanitary as they should be. Because you got to think. When you're homeless, you sleep wherever you can sleep. You try to stay out of the way for the most part. So a lot of times, you sleep wherever you can sleep. So when you got a group of people that congregate together, they haven't had the chance to take a shower in God knows how long, and they've been outside in the elements sleeping on the ground. See, one issue that many homeless shelters have are issues with bed bugs. Because I've talked to several people that are homeless on and off camera that they report to me that before they went to the shelter, they had no issues with bed bugs. When they went to the shelter, they got bed bugs. So many of your shelters are not as sanitary as they should be when it comes to housing people. And another reason why many homeless people don't like going to shelters is because sometimes you got staff that are there. Many of them are miserable themselves. They're earning minimum wage. They're miserable. It's probably their second job. So they're not gonna have the best customer service when it comes to dealing with people that are homeless. Some of them are gonna be downright mean and judgmental. And when you're facing a situation like homelessness, the last thing that you want to deal with is an individual that's got poor customer service, is an individual that's going to be judgmental and make you feel even worse than the way you already feel. So that's another reason why a lot of homeless people don't like going to a shelter. And then you got other kind of shelters that are religious based. And not everyone who is homeless is A, religious, or B, desires to be religious. Because you got some shelters that, yeah, they'll allow you to go to a shelter, they'll help you out, give you a meal or two. But guess what? Now you got to go to church twice a week. And no disrespect on religion. But for those who are not religious and they end up in a messed up situation of being homeless, they don't want to go to your church. They don't want to participate in a religion that they don't believe in. They rather be, their attitude is like, you know what? Forget all that. I'm just going to stay out in these streets and do the best I can do, and I'm not about to participate in something that's not me. So that's another reason why you have a lot of homeless people that don't like going to shelters. And so yeah, so for those of you that are thinking, well, you know what, homeless people need to go to a shelter, and if they go to a shelter, they have nothing to worry about. They won't have to worry about being arrested and put in jail. That is so not true. So now the next question is, let me get in my notes here. Now the next, I'll just say multi-billion-dollar question is, I mean, to be more specific, my 11 to 30 billion dollar question is, what's the solution to deal with the homelessness in the United States? What is the solution? Now, as I have this discussion, I want you guys to understand one thing. I'm not going to focus on one particular state. I'm not going to focus on one particular region of the country. This discussion is in concerns to the entire United States. And I'm not going to focus on any particular political party. Because no matter what political party you affiliate with or you identify with, this issue of homelessness is not going to go away, unfortunately. So, what do we do? What's the solution to deal with homelessness? I mean, is there even a solution to deal with homelessness? Now, my quick answer is yes. If the United States government genuinely wanted to deal with homelessness, they could have dealt with homelessness a very long time ago. But they choose not to because unfortunately homelessness is very profitable to many of your local and state politicians. So that is one of the big reasons why homelessness continues to be an issue that continues to get worse. Because you got a lot of politicians that have no soul, and homelessness to them is a profit. Because what happens is you might have a certain city or a certain county that might report, okay, we have X amount of homeless people. So they report those numbers to the federal government, and then the federal government will cut them a check, and then rather than taking that money and properly spending it to truly put a dent in homelessness, or even taking that money and helping to improve the quality of life for people who are homeless, they take that money and pocket it. And maybe they might take a small incy tinsy fraction of that money and go out here and buy some cheap white bread, some cheap Walmart bologna, slap that stuff together, buy the cheapest quality piece of fruit they can buy, the cheapest quality pieces of food that they can buy, and then they'll give these individuals who end up homeless a bag lunch. Maybe they might give them a dinner, and even when it comes to dinner or breakfast, for those that might serve breakfast, again, they'll buy the lowest quality food, use the lowest quality ingredients, and that's what the homeless population has to eat. And a lot of times, these shelters are not properly equipped to deal with a large amount of people. Now, I've never been in a homeless shelter. I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, maybe somebody can holler at me in the comment section. Do homeless shelters even have showers? Do they even have a shower in a homeless shelter? Holler at me in the comment section. I love to know. But there is a way for homelessness to be solved. Yes, there is. I mean, the amount of money that it will cost to solve homelessness, it will cost between 11 to 30 billion dollars. Now, bear this in mind: the government spends 30 to 50 thousand a year per homeless person. So for each person that's homeless, the government spends supposedly the government spends $30 to $50,000 a year, and the money goes towards funding crisis services to include jails. Keep that in mind, jails. That new law that they passed through the Supreme Court. I guarantee the bulk of that money that they spend on homeless people are going to probably go to the jails. They also spend that money on hospitalization and emergency department, whatever the hell that means. I guess it means if a person who's homeless decides to go into a vacant property and they catch that property on fire. I'm assuming that's what they mean. I'm not sure. And as of 2023, the United States government has spent $150 billion on dealing with illegal, so to speak, immigration. And my question is, if they're so illegal, why aren't we treating them as if they're illegal? But anyways, I digress. And the U.S. government as of 2023, the U.S. government spent $400 billion on migrant support. No, as of 2023, the U.S. government then spent $451 billion on the so-called migrant crisis. Let me read that again. As of 2023, the U.S. government has spent $451 billion on the migrant crisis. So again, is there truly a solution to solve homelessness in the United States? Anybody that's got some common sense would say yes, there is. And it could have been solved a long time ago. And having this issue been solved a long time ago, it could have been solved for far less money than what it would cost today to solve it. But even with the prices of today, homelessness could be solved overnight. If the United States government really wanted to solve homelessness, they could solve it just like that. But they don't, because, hey, you got too many politicians out here. They got their hand in the jar. Homelessness is a very profitable endeavor to many of your politicians, so there is no financial benefit to your local power structure to solve homelessness, which is why homelessness is going to most likely continue to be it's going to continue to get worse, regardless of what political party is in the local or state or even federal offices. Which is why I do not put too much energy on politics on this channel or in my personal life. Which is why I advocate for every American man and woman to work together and to quit fighting each other over politics, to quit fighting each other over race, over class. Because I think as American people, when we fight each other, it's a uphill battle. Everybody loses. Nobody wins. The only people that win are the people who run everything. And so yeah, hopefully you guys got something out of the video. Hopefully this video encourages you guys to quit fighting each other and then start working together. Hopefully, this video will also encourage those of you who have the resources and the time to prepare your your life, to prepare yourself and your family to where you won't have to deal with homelessness. I mean, for those of you that want to call me late, that want to call me setting people up for failure because I talk about homelessness and I give suggestions of how you can prepare for homelessness, and I also give suggestions of how you can prepare to not be homeless. But most of you haters out there aren't even paying attention to those videos. But it is what it is, though. I mean, one thing I'm learning on YouTube is there's a lot of people out here that love to put words in our mouth. I mean, it is what it is. It's part of YouTube, so I accept it. But it doesn't mean I'm not gonna push back. So again, if you're able to avoid homelessness in the first place, your best bet is to do what you need to do to avoid homelessness. And I'm talking legally. For those of you that are a little slow and don't have no common sense. So yeah, hopefully you guys got something out of the video. And if you like what I do, go ahead, give videos like this a thumbs up. And while you're at it, if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. And on that note, everybody stay blessed. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. And one more thing. Think the best, but prepare for the worst. Stay blessed.